Hello travelers, and welcome back to another episode of the Architect's Forge. In this episode we continue our look at the forces of the Mounthaven with the Keeper of the Sacred Fire. And as always, let's start off with a little bit of lore. The Keepers of the Sacred Fire sometimes enter combat, accompanying the rest of Mounthaven's protectors, especially when the dwarven halls themselves are in danger. They embody the power of the flame that burns not only in the homes, but also in the hearts of the dwarves themselves. This spiritual fire manifests itself in the form of ancestral knowledge that revitalizes the spirits, increases their warrior ardor, and even heals their wounds. This healing, which manifests itself in the form of a burning flame, leaves a scar that further highlights the glory gained by the cured dwarf. So the Keepers of the Sacred Fire are, almost like priests in some other games. They rally the troops and keep them fighting, which we will see a bit more when we get looking at their profile. But before we do, just like to remind you that if you're enjoying this content, please remember to like, follow, and subscribe to the channel. It helps me know and that you're watching, and also helps the algorithm make sure other people find the channel to find and share all the cool Warcrow content. Also, if this is your first time, check out the other Mounthaven videos, or if you've only just joined us for the Mounthaven, make sure to check out some of the other faction, unit breakdowns, and also, battle reports if you're interested. If you're interested in supporting the channel financially, there is a link to a Buy Me a Coffee in the description below, as well as an affiliate link to the Corvus Belly store. So if you are buying something like the Mounthaven bundle, for example, through the Corvus Belly store, and you use the affiliate code, the channel will get a bit of a kickback. But with that, let's move into the profile and let's see what the Keeper of the Sacred Fire does on the board. As always, we'll begin by looking at their basic stats. The Keeper of the Sacred Fire comes in at a relatively low cost of 20 points, which makes it quite easy of a character to add to your list. 20 points isn't a huge investment. It is a support, so it won't contribute to your unit size, but otherwise, 20 points, you can't really... officer for 20 points would be, much rarer. He does have that low dwarven speed that we're getting used to of 2-2 with a charge of 8. So, unfortunately, he's not going to be moving around very fast on his own or charging very far. He does have 3 wounds, which is pretty good for a cheap support. A lot of times these characters are only 2, but, well, the dwarves are tough. I don't think any of them are less than 3 wounds, so that's pretty good. He has a high willpower of a red and a yellow, and that low dwarven morale of just 1. So high whip, which is good, and it will be meaningful to him despite not being a spellcaster, and the wounds will keep him alive. But if he is solo, you're not activating him many times, and he's not likely to run because of the high whip, but you won't be able to activate him a bunch, which I really don't think you'll want to. He is availability 1, so you may only bring 1 of him. And keywords and characteristics, there's nothing particularly exciting, except he does have the join dwarf infantry keyword, so that does mean that he'll be able to join all the infantry we've seen so far, the militia, the raiders, and the Hearthguard, and it's a fair expectation that he'll be able to join the rest of the infantry, at least in wave 1. I don't think we'll be getting any non-dwarven infantry. Sadly, he does bring 0 conquest, but he is a 20-point support character, so it's kind of to be expected. Well, let's jump into looking at his attack. And it's really nothing to write home about. 2 orange and a yellow. You can see the numbers on screen. It's an average of 1.60 hits. It's a bad attack. Really, don't bother. There's really not much of a reason to punch with him. Yeah, really, you need to be in a dire strait, I think, to activate him, to have him punch something. Just probably don't. And when we look at defense, it's really not too much better. It's 3 blues, which averages about 1.5 blocks, the maximum of 3. It's fine. it's an okay defense. He has 3 wounds. He might be able to survive a punch from something that doesn't hit particularly hard, but really don't rely on it. You really want to be keeping this guy away from combat if you can. Really, this isn't a solo character that you want to be fighting. This is very bare bones. He's really here for his abilities and his ability to join. So let's start looking at those skills. The first is a skill called the Fire from the Hearth, and this will target all allies within 12 strides. Now, it's important to note, it is all allies, not just one. However, it does target, so you will need line of sight. So this means any unit that he can see within 12 strides of him will get the following effect. And that effect is he'll roll his willpower. So that's that red and yellow. And for each success or each hit, he gets to choose one of the following. It does seem from the wording you can choose the same one more than once. And the effects are either you can heal a wound or damage, or you can reduce the target's stress by 1. So this is very powerful. With the red-yellow willpower, your will average 1.5 successes. So you'll usually get 1. Occasionally, you'll get 2 of these things. High wound units in Mounthaven, being 3 wounds across the board, at least of the units we've seen so far, means that there is a higher chance that healing will actually come up. A lot of times, if your army's based around 2 wound units, there's a lot less likely that you'll actually have units that are, damaged, but not just straight up missing a model. The bigger one here, though, I think, is the AoE stress reduction. This is very good in a faction that usually only has 1 morale on their units. So this can kind of clear a bunch of stress from guys in one go. Let's say you've activated your 3 units. This guy is going to jump out, or you activated them. Maybe you've stressed a couple of them, and you're wanting to activate one of them again. You're like, okay, I'm going to remove that stress. Pretty much guaranteed to be able to remove the stress. And hey, if let's say you get the health one, now you also heal a bit too. But I think primarily you're going to be focused on using this for stress reduction. And the second ability is a passive ability. Also targets all allies within 12, this time not requiring line of sight, exalted by the flame. And it says that as long as a unit doesn't have stress, they may add the modifiers to their attack and defense rolls without suffering stress. Only 1 in the case that they have more than 1. So what this essentially means is if you have a stress modifier, so beside the lightning bolt in the black bar of the attack and defense, if you have no stress on you when you are attacking or when you are defending, then you may add the stress modifier essentially for free without having to take that stress. This is another really good ability for a faction that doesn't have a lot of morale. So without things like this, would really have to consider whether they stress or not for their modifiers, and helps even further, balance that limited resource. This is particularly good in the cases of defensive switches, because let's say you're a unit and you have activated and you've attacked. You can do your stress modifier, right? You have no stress on you, and then now you're defending. You can, as long as you don't activate again and you don't lose a combat, you can just keep on adding the stress modifier over and over and over again without having to worry about, getting stressed. That is assuming you don't lose the combat, but that's pretty good. That's a pretty good combination you can do. So that was pretty quick and simple. Moving on, we'll look at his attached profile, so at the bottom. First and foremost, he adds an extra wound. Adding an extra wound is always strong. This is especially true in the case of dwarven units that are all 3 wounds. That means that a Keeper of Sacred Fire in something like Hearthguard just becomes 4 wound models. So that means, before the to take out up to the Keeper of Sacred Fire, that's going to be 16 wounds, and then another 3 on top of that. So essentially, he'll turn his unit into a 19 wound unit, which even for units that can hit really hard, that's just a lot to chew through. Next, he doesn't bring any straight up bonus to attack or defense, but he does give you a stress modifier to add a red on your attack, which is a strong boost. Red is the best offensive dice, so for a lot of units, this is gonna just ratchet up their ability to hit. It's also worth noting that his passive Exalted by the Flame ability, which we'll see is also in his attached form, will allow you, while you don't have stress, to always just add this red die if you are a unit that doesn't start with a die. In defense, it's the exact same, but he is adding a green die. So this means that he gets to just add that nice handy dandy green die as long as his unit isn't stressed. This is particularly good in something like Hearthguard, where as long as they don't activate that second time or face a unit that gives them stress, because they do not take stress from losing combat, if they are just sitting on a point and they don't have stress on them, they can just keep on adding this green die to their defense or their own switch if you want to be immovable, without ever having to stress themselves. So it's a pretty handy combo. But that's kind of getting into the abilities, and he has 2 abilities when he is attached. It is, I guess, before saying that, worth noting he doesn't add Conquest, which again, he's a 20-point support, so you can't get everything. But getting into those abilities we're talking about, we have the first one, which is a command ability called Scarred by the Fire. And this is a once per round ability, and it must occur during the Keeper's unit's activation. And it's straightforward. Just once per round, you just get to recover a troop. 1 command token, just bring a troop back. There is nothing not to like about that. Every dwarf unit, as I said, is 3 wounds, and because the Keeper is adding a wound to your unit, that means you are just bringing 4 wounds back into your unit. So now that unit that we talked about will be 19 wounds to take off the field is actually 23, and that's assuming that they, don't lose guys in over multiple rounds and have the ability to just bring back multiple guys. Keeper in a unit will just make them extremely durable and hard to take out. His second ability is Exalted by the Flame, and it's the exact same as the passive ability when he is unattached. So you aren't losing that. Essentially, the choice between attaching him or keeping him unattached comes down to whether you want access to Scarred by the Fire or the Fires from the Hearth. So, just summing up, I find that the Keeper of the Sacred Fire provides solid support while solo and while he is attached, especially for his cost. The main value of him being unattached is that AoE heal, or more importantly, the stress reduction. And I think what you will want to do with this guy is start with him attached to a unit, providing that extra wound, the model revival, and that ability, to just pretty much guarantee that unit to just keep their defense up, especially in something like Hearthguard. But I think that you keep in mind throughout the course of the game that at some point you might want to activate the Keeper to leave his unit, to walk out of the unit and provide that AoE stress reduction or heal to probably the unit he just came from, as well as some allies nearby. And in that way, I think he's very strong from a utility perspective. And I think the smart players will need to get used to figuring out when is time for him to leave the unit. In terms of particularly good combos, I think the one that stands out to me the most is him in Hearthguard, because of what we were talking about, where he can just keep giving them that green die and they can keep getting attacked, and they don't, even if they lose combat, they don't gain stress. So he can just be bolstering their defenses, or he can be using that ability to have them stay immovable by activating their switch that guarantees them getting the immovable. But I think he's also useful in other units. In something like Raiders, he's pretty handy for making them 4 wounds from the small unit. So now they have 8 wounds before, well, actually it's 8 plus another 3 before the unit's gone. But also it means that once one Raider is dead, he can just, revive that and keep them at full strength. So I think there is also value for that there. But those are just my thoughts about the Keeper of the Sacred Fire, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, either now around launch, or if you're watching this later or want to come back to it later once you've gotten more games in with him. I'd love to hear what you're thinking. But with that, May the dice be ever in your favor.